Did anybody give you sheets?
Speakers?
Yeah, nobody gave me any.
Do you need Hans?
I told him, so he knows. Hey Hans, you want to speak during the agenda item, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's options.
That's just an agenda, so it doesn't look like they're filling out a form. Will you make yourself a note on agenda item 3? Just so we don't skip them.
Because I did that.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, we're ready to go when you are.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the September 26th Board of Aldermen meeting. And this call this meeting to order. I would ask everyone to rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I would ask the city clerk to do a roll call for attendance.
Alderman Allen?
Here.
Alderman Eben?
Here.
Alderman Holman?
Here.
Alderman Hughes?
Here.
Alderman Mortland?
Here.
Alderman Perot?
Here.
And Alderman Weezahan.
Here.
I have Alderman Francisco as absent, Mary is presiding, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Regarding the minutes from the September 12th meeting, I seek a motion and second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or amendment?
I made, sorry.
Go ahead.
I made one comment to Mr. McNamara about a change for, very, very minor, about a name change for Katie Ward instead of Katie Exline.
I've already made it as a Scrivener's error, so if everyone's okay with that, then we're good.
Okay.
But thank you so much for bringing that to my attention.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just wanted to comment that I was absent at the last board meeting, but I did watch the video of the proceeding,
Okay.
so I'm up to speed on what occurred.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do not believe we have any appointments or public hearings. Before I ask the aldermen if they have any reports on their commissions, I just wanted to make a couple notes. First, that last week, the city of Town and Country did host the St. Louis County Municipal League membership meeting. It was really a great turnout. It was a very pleasant evening. I wanted to especially thank the city staff for organizing and taking care of the event. They did a wonderful job. I think everybody there had a wonderful time. And I also want to thank Alderman Allen for attending, so thank you very much. Also, then I would like to ask Mr. Stone to do an update on the ongoing Clayton Road work. I'm really happy that that will ever finish. As will my transmission and axles in the car.
Well, the bulk of the work has been completed, fortunately. The entire water main has been installed. Currently, they're transferring services, so individual homeowners and street connections are being made. That should be completed by the end of October, if not earlier. And then they're taking bids currently to restore the pavement, and they expect that to be completed by the end of November.
Right.
So
Obviously, it's a big project.
Done by the end of the year.
And it's all been fun, but and it's all absolutely necessary, but I will be glad when it's over, as will all the other people who are on Clayton Road.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And because Michelle, Francisco's not here and Nixon's not here, I want to talk about fire and ice for a minute, just to remind folks that it's this Saturday from 5 to 8, it's in 2 locations at Longview Farm Park in Town Square. Live music, food and drink, kids, games and activities, sponsor booths, and then at 8, fireworks, sponsored by Marita Bell, which we appreciate very much. So it's a fun evening, it's a great community event. So encourage everybody to attend. We've had a great turnout for us. Now I will open it up to the Board of Aldermen if they give them the opportunity to provide any reports from their commissions, if they wish. Alderman Weezy.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, relay we had a good meeting last week at the Police Fire and EMS Commission. We went over some of the upcoming projections for 2023, and also just wanted to, we highlighted just the appreciation we have for CCPD, command staff, but importantly, all of the patrol officers that we have on a day-to-day basis take care of the city. You know, we had an incident last week, and the response was phenomenal. We really appreciate everything that our police department provides and takes care of.
Yeah, I'd second that. And that, I did another subdivision meeting last night, and you can just tell when I talk about the police department that a lot of heads nodding, yes, they understand what a great police department we have here, for sure. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. The task force on the Veterans and First Responders tribute met Friday, and we unanimously voted on a final product that will be, the plan is to present that to this board on October 10th, at our first October meeting. And I do want to also comment, you mentioned fire and ice, but we do have this VIP table, or VIP booth, and we actually have some commissioners here, so we'll be happy to definitely recognize all of the commissioners from all the commissioners and boards. Thank you. And I think that's going to be great. That's something we haven't done before.
No, it's my idea.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second, Alderman Eden.
I just wanted to dovetail on what Alderman Weezingham had said about the incident that occurred last Tuesday. I am extremely thankful for all of our officers and all the way up to our command staff who really worked extremely hard to take into custody 2 of the 4 suspects. It hit home as my husband and I were the ones that were awake and saw them attempting to break into our cars, and I cannot say enough thanks to the police department for how quickly they reacted, the surrounding departments that came in, I believe Missouri Highway Patrol. I mean, there were all hands on deck with this, and they were extremely successful in capturing 2 of the 4 suspects. So I thank them for that.
I think we all concur with that, absolutely. Alderman Holman.
So lock it or lose it is the message there, right? So, we can't say it enough. But I just wanted to report on the Public Works Commission meeting. We will have one in October, but at our next Board of Aldermen meeting, we'll solidify the date and time of that meeting. It will be week 3, but it may move a couple days. That's it.
Alderman Perot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick note on planning and zoning. There was no meeting in September, but we are scheduled to have one October 19th.
Thank you. Which I think will be interesting.
And maybe.
And Mr. Sheldon, do you have a report?
Not this evening.
Okay, great. All right, unfinished business. Bill number 22-50, sponsored by Alderman Wortland, without objection, with the city clerk read the bill for the second time.
Bill number 2250 is an ordinance approving a conditional use and authorizing a conditional use permit for an accessory structure, a roof-mounted solar energy system facing a street located at 722 Savannah Crossing Way in the city of Town and Country.
I seek a motion to approve. So moved.
Second.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? I would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Moreland.
Aye.
Alderman Eben.
Aye.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Hughes.
Aye.
Alderman Weezingham.
Aye.
And Alderman Perot.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4529.
Next is bill number 22-51, also sponsored by Alderman. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2251 is an ordinance approving a conditional use and authorizing a conditional use permit for an accessory structure, a pool located at 23 Summerhill Lane in the city of Town and Country.
I seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion or amendment? I would ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Hughes.
Aye.
Alderman Weasingham.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Moreland.
Aye.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
Alderman Perot.
Aye.
And Alderman Even.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4530.
Next is bill number 22-52, perhaps sponsored as a board as a whole. I think on this topic, we do have one speaker. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Is that it on?
Is that me? Is that?
Before we do that, we should,
Do this, okay?
yeah.
Okay. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2252 is an ordinance establishing the annual rate of tax levy for the year 2022 on property located within the boundaries of the city of Town and Country, St. Louis County, Missouri, providing for the extension of said taxes on the books of the county collector by the county clerk, and providing for the collection as provided by law. I will also be entering emails from the following individuals. These will go into the record, but each was also previously distributed to the board. I have Jeff and Cindy Mentel, Diane Hanisch and Robin Ruff, Edgar Enslin, Mark Johnson, Kathy and Steve Korbecki, Norman Probst, Donna Thomas, Ann Dunning, Bill Noonan, Mary and Tom Getty, Bob Watson, William McNamara, Mark Dow, Collins Quarter, Patricia Quarter, John and Nancy Hillhouse, Mike Alderson, Frank Gilman, Debbie Gilman, Maria and Martin Perone. And I would also just want to state for the record that I made contact with Alderman Francisco because she wasn't here for the first reading and wouldn't be here for this reading, and she was okay being a part of the board's sponsorship.
I think I personally, I don't know if all the emails I received also were addressed to the board as a whole. I think somewhere around 40-ish. You recollect that how many?
47.
47, okay. All right, that's what I thought. Okay. So I seek a motion to approve the
So
second.
moved. Second.
Okay, and now we're at the discussion part. I would like to let Mr. Bishop go ahead and talk, and then we'll open it up here on the board.
Okay, my name is Hans Frederickson, I'm from Ward 3, and I am the Vice Chair of the Ways and Means Commission. So our goal is to, review the finances, make recommendations, and make sure that the city is in good, financial shape, both, now and in the future. And based on the numbers that we have looked at, based on the numbers that primarily Joanne has provided to us, but others as well, it looks like we are increasing our expenditures slightly faster than we're increasing our income. So the projections that we've been working on are based on basically a 1% increase in revenue and a 2.5% increase in expenses. And I would say both of those numbers are relatively modest, particularly right now when we're experiencing approximately 8% in inflation. So our revenue might be higher, but we would also then expect our expenses to be higher as well. So we are proposing a 10-cent property tax that would actually go into effect for this year. So that would, people would pay it next year, but it would be for 2022. And if you look here on your right or on your left, you would see if we do this, the bottom line is we would raise a little bit under $1 million per year, about $940,000, which is much needed revenue. If we could advance the slide one. So we have a couple of projections, and these are really based on this starting either in 2026 or in 2024. And the goal here is to create a more balanced budget and to make sure that our reserves do not go below 50%. We are required at this point to have reserves above 50%. They are well above that now, but if you look at where it says, percent of fund balance, the reserve kind of in the middle, you can see it starts at about 90% and then declines down to 60%. And that's if we increase taxes starting in 2026. If you can advance one more slide. If we instead started in 2024, we're actually in much better shape. The reserves start out about the same there, about 90%, and stay relatively steady. So we could certainly delay. I think if we don't do the tax increase in 24 or even in 26, we're probably going to be okay. But in an abundance of caution and maybe getting prepared for we don't really know what's going to happen with the revenue, but we do know that expenses are pretty constant and expenses could increase. We actually propose that we move this a little earlier, that we start the new tax increase in 2022. That gives us another $1 million each year. That means we should have no issues in terms of keeping the reserves above 50%. And we could probably even modestly increase spending and still have, things work out well for this year. So, am I supposed to take questions at this point, or is it?
No, your statement is fine.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Mayor, I'll note for the record as well that I'll enter these slides as part of the minutes too. Thank you.
Okay. And then, so I will open up for discussion. And then we'll board vote. Alderman out.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to amend the levy rate from 0 to 10 cents for all categories listed in section 1 of the bill, consistent with the recommendation of the Ways and Means Commission, including the insertion of a recital that notes the purpose of the increase is in order to meet future expense needs projected to outpace revenue while maintaining the 50% fund balance.
You need a second for that?
Second.
Any other discussion or amendment on that? Alderman Weezy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to make a statement real quick. Since 2022, we've had 3 different recommendations from advisory commissions to pursue additional sources of revenue. Even with our recent sales tax revenue having exceptional growth, our best case projection shows that we'll be operating in a deficit in 2023 and each year to follow. While the ARPA stimulus funds will help with the general fund should they be transferred, I do not agree in principle with using proceeds of an asset such as a land sale from this year to be used towards the day-to-day operations. While an economic downturn is a what-if scenario, many indicators give concern about the sustainability of our sales tax revenue in coming years. During the last economic downturn and recession, our revenue dropped significantly and major changes were needed to follow. A 10-cent tax will supplement our current revenue and allow us to keep our reserves healthy should we need them. Although we are able to have our reserves much lower than they are, it has been recommended to follow the 50% level or above as long as our primary source of sales tax revenue continues to be elastic as it is. We know that without any additional large one-time funds, any projection, good or bad, will result in the need for additional revenue in the near future. We know we will be at a point where something has to change, either our revenue source or the services we provide. Whether or not I'm here on this board again in 2 years, I'm not in favor of waiting until the next opportunity to make this vote, and we'll be voting in favor tonight.
Any other discussion? Alderman Holman.
I have a question for Alderman Lewis again, or Mayor, whoever you want to direct this to. Did you say that we have projections that indicate that we are going to be running at a deficit in 2023?
The different.
What financial modeling is that?
That is, the expenses are going to outpace the revenues.
Was that in our retreat packet? as one of the modelings that Joanne presented. And the reason why I'm asking is because I recall everything starting in 2024 when we start running the deficit and a concern. So that's why I'm asking the question, just so I'm super clear.
Mr. Dowling, do you want to answer that, please?
Give me just a minute, because I'll pull up my slides.
Take your time. There's nothing like questions out of the way.
If I can, Mayor, I believe the response is in the, just even the base kind of projection shows revenue at 10.4 million, expense at 11 million. So expenses are projected to outpace revenue.
Okay, but because of the ARPA and the sale of land, our reserves and our general fund is healthy because of these funds coming in. Okay, all right, that's the.
But our expenses do outpace our
Okay,
revenue.
right.
Right, and if you, in 2025, according to one of the projections I did, where the expenditure growth was 4% higher and a 5% drop in revenue, the issue becomes apparent in 2025. But if you take out what Mr. Louisiana is saying, and you take out the ARPA and the sale of that property to BJC, then of course that's much, much sooner.
Right. So let me ask you about the ARPA funds. When you filled out the paperwork on how we were going to use those funds, when did you do that? When did we turn that information in?
So I only had to submit one document so far, and I just said it was going to be a loss of revenue. So basically, we can use it for anything except we cannot use it for contributions to the pension fund. And there's one more item, and I forgot what it was that we can't use it for.
And when did you fill out that paperwork?
April of 2022 is when it was due.
Okay, and so did you receive any information back that was inappropriate use of funds?
No, there were many presentations that were provided. So some municipalities use it for operations, some municipalities use it for capital expenditures. It's really the choice of the municipality.
And so with ours, are we basically using those funds to offset costs that from what we experienced through COVID because of overtime, because of PPE expenses and whatnot? So now did we choose to spend
So right now, it's just in the general fund.
and
You
we
haven't
haven't
spent
made
the
a
money.
specific decision?
There was a recommendation from Ways and Means, I recall, to apply it to the fire contract,
Okay, so
at
that's
least
a
the
recommendation
first
from the
million
Ways
for
and
the
Means
fire
Commission
as I
to,
recall.
So right now, the money is separate for the ARPA money. It is in a separate fund. It would require the Board of Aldermen to vote to move it to the general fund because I'm not allowed to move the money myself from fund to fund.
and do you anticipate that coming before us before the end of this year? Where we can move it into the general fund or the request for
Yes,
that?
the recommendation or the request would be in, I think it was November, beginning of November.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. To begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the commitment and the credentials of our Town and Country Ways and Means Commissioners, of which we have 3 in this chamber, and I thank you all for coming. I've been honored to have chaired the commission for 4 years, and I have great respect for the combined high level of financial expertise of the group as a whole. This amendment to Bill 2252 tonight is reflective of the city's recent downward progression in fund balance due to expenditures exceeding revenue. Future declining projections continue with the exception of 22, due to $3.2 million of one-time money from the feds and from sale of a property, one-time money. The purpose in moving forward with the 2022 10 cent per $100 residential property tax assessment is to proactively act on the city's behalf to create a level of stability within our revenue streams. I'm assuming most town and country residents would never be comfortable having instability within their personal finances by not knowing how much income they can rely on. Residents, and I had assumed we'd have more people here, but I assume they listen. And I know we've heard emails, but I hope residents will recognize none of us on this board take this vote lightly. I believe what it comes down to is what comfort level one has regarding uncertainties or unknowns that can impact the city's finances. There are numerous scenarios which actually could help the city. These are the following. The city could propose the use tax be repeated on the ballot, which would depend on voters passing. Not likely. Well, I apologize, I don't know that. A fire protection sales tax, which depends on the state legislature passing enabling legislation by adding 4 words in the current statute. That's an unknown. Mr. Shelton and I have already started exploring this process, which will begin the first week of January and conclude middle of May. And this will be our 4th year in. And we've actually got some good prospects. So I'm not all negative. Okay. After, though, a statutory change, the city would be able to propose a public safety tax on the ballot, which then would require voters to pass. That's another unknown. Realistic, how likely is anything to pass on the ballot? It is possible that the new businesses that we have in the city could generate enough sales tax revenues to cover the increases of expenditures. And that's another unknown that we face. If any of these options could actually occur, the Board of Aldermen can reduce the property tax in a year, and that has been done before. Just to clarify what this 10 cent per $100 assessed value means, for a resident owning a home of $700,000, which is the median home value in our city, they would pay $133 a year, $11.08 a month, or $2.56 a week. Any individual then can adjust that number for their home assessed value if it's less than $700,000 or however much greater their home value is assessed. I ask any resident if they acknowledge the value of our city police, fire, and EMS services, or of having their streets plowed following a snowstorm. Currently, we as residents pay not 1 cent for our public safety. We do pay sales tax when we voluntarily and conveniently shop in our great city, while at the same time we receive a purchase and a service, but we pay nothing dedicated to our safety. This amendment and my yes vote tonight, following the Ways and Means unanimous recommendation to levy this 10 cent tax, and my personal belief is that the city would be best served currently by being proactive and working for greater stability of revenue streams with the many unknowns that we currently face. Either result tonight, as we have in the past, we will work vigorously toward garnering any of the above options mentioned below. I appreciate this discussions and all the resident involvement in this and other issues concerning the well-being of our city. Thank you.
Any other discussion, Alderman Holman?
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to appreciating the commission, I also appreciate our city administrator, who has been a city administrator not only in our municipality, but others for
Couple of years.
a couple of years, for a while. And our finance director and our mayor. And our finance director tells us, and our city administrator tells us, and our mayor tells us that they can operate and they can maintain services in 2023 without imposing a property tax this year. So I appreciate their expertise, and the real expert in the room is our financial director, who has told us that with her financial modeling. And yes, every resident certainly appreciates all their services that they receive from our municipality for 26 years. And I am unapologetic to the fact that we have not paid a property tax in 26 years. And I say bravo again to the city and the finance department and the boards and the mayors over the past 2 decades plus 6 who have managed to maintain that for our residents. And what I do understand with the math is the $2 million in ARPA plus the $1 million in the sale of the property. Sorry if people don't like where it came from, but we have $3 million in the bank, okay? And then if we impose a property tax this year, we'll have close to another $1 million. And then if you impose that this year, you get collected at the end of the year, and then you have another $1 million coming in next year. So are you telling me that any board member has presented to you a $5 million plan on what additional services we're going to provide to our residents? I haven't seen one yet. So to go out and have $5 million in our bank account without a vision and a plan isn't something I can stand behind. What I can stand behind is to have faith and confidence in our city administrator, move forward with our budget next year without a property tax. And then at the end of first quarter, the Ways and Means Commission and the Board of Aldermen have a special meeting. We come together. Joanne provides the financial, what we've experienced over that first quarter, where we are, where we're trending, and where we're projected to go. And in April together, we move as one together, deciding if we need to take further action in 2023 to ensure that we have a balanced budget and supplying services. And we outline what those are. It's 3 different taxes right now that may be available to us. And then if we all decide as one which way we want to go and land something on our November ballot, then we outline an action plan on how we're going to communicate as mayor with forums, open houses, and coffees, as city with your electronic mailers, and as aldermen, we take what you created and we push it out in our publications. And that's how we move through 2023. And guess what? By the way, we have a reserve that's going to end this year at 57%. So we're already starting with a cushion as we move into 2023. We're not starting behind the 8 ball, we're actually starting far ahead of that. So I can't get there.
Thank you. Alderman Ward?
A question for the city administrator.
Sure.
So, Mr. Shelton, so first off, if the tax is not passed tonight, what would happen if we were in need of getting into the reserves?
So in order to dip below the 50%, if that's the question, you actually have a section of the municipal code, 145.180, that requires if you're going to go below the 50%, that the board is notified by the finance director. Then any appropriation that would go below that, that would drop below the amount, this is the exact language, and that's section C that says you have to maintain 50% of your general fund projected expenditures. If you're gonna go below that, no expenditure shall be made which causes or would cause the reserve account to drop below the amount required in subsection C, which is your 50%, unless and until such expenditure is expressly authorized by an emergency appropriation adopted and approved by 2/3 of the senior members of the Board of Aldermen.
Thank you. And one follow-up question. How much, just for the record, is currently in the reserves?
So the 2021 actual ending fund balance was 7.5 million.
Thank you. And then, so just the overall statement that I have is the reserves. Thank you, Mr. Sheldon. So the reserves are there. The purpose and intent have been put in place by previous administration and finance departments to really help our city to plan for the emergencies and continue the quality that we provide. Going into COVID, we had the same discussion, and we really looked at it from the standpoint of let's really look at the long term of our expense and our revenue, where it's going, and handling it. And thankfully, we've come out better than we thought we were, and we weathered the storm through that for the most part. So again, back to the purpose and intent of the reserves is the emergency fund. It is to take care of us at that level. We are above that, and we're still projected to be above that for some years. And I know there's accounting, and I have an accounting degree, and across there's best practices, and then there's reality. Revenue is revenue, and if revenue is coming in and we have money in the bank and we can pay our expenditures, we're in a surplus. We are still adhering to the reserves. And for me, really, it's really looking at, are we still providing the quality of service to our city and to our citizens that are there? So we have a beautifully well-run city, a great staff, great resources, our roads, incredible public safety, our police and fire EMS, our parks, our trails, our tennis. We're doing a lot of great things, and really we should be continually looking at that. The investment in this is a lot. We are above it right now. There are options for future revenue. There's some that we know and some that we don't know. And continually want to point out the staff. The staff is continually using resourceful planning on the playgrounds, Trace Park. It's going to cost $630,000 to redo that park, and it's going to be a great park. We have a grant for $420,000 for that park. So we're being resourceful in our procurement and purchasing. And then just overall, when you look at finances, this isn't telling a great story long term. But short term, we have what we need. Our citizens' dollars stay in their pockets, but this is more of a conversation of it's not if but when, unless something changes on the revenue side. And just overall appreciate the discussion amongst the Board of Aldermen, the awareness, the time, the commissioners, their effort, the staff effort, and just overall, just the communication is, we have a great city, we have to fund the city, and if it's not this tax increase, it might be a future one. Then other options, get out and vote, shop in town and country.
Appreciate your comments. Appreciate everybody's comments. Alderman Weezing.
Thank you. I had just one question to follow up with Alderman Holman. You mentioned if anybody came up with a $5 million proposal for 3 of that was in the projections, correct?
Mm-hmm, correct.
So the additional would be just from
This year and next year.
would be the difference between the 3. Wouldn't necessarily need a proposal for additional spending on 5. 3 has already been proposed in the projection.
Well, and you get the 940 this year.
Right.
So there's 4 million. And if you don't want to include the 2023 940 or wherever we come out next year, the city alderman presented a $4 million projection on how we're going to spend it. But I was including the 2023 as well. Because I don't know if everyone realizes if this, and I'm not saying the board, but just listeners, that if we would impose a property tax, we get that money this year.
Sure.
It hits the bank this year, not next year. And so, and we'll be in budget season pretty soon here for 2023. So just rolling that.
Yeah, and And the only other comment I just wanted to make, I agree with you, I appreciate Mr. Dowley, all city staff, and I think, we've had the conversation of, absolutely taking everyone's consideration in and, any input. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's our responsibility, as a legislative body to take in everyone's input, everyone's experience, everyone's past, bring it to the table and to make the decision, as a whole and how it ends up is what we are.
Alderman Neva.
I too wanted to say that I appreciate everyone's time. This has been a very lengthy discussion, and it started prior to this even coming before us a couple weeks ago. It has been extremely enlightening to listen to residents on both sides of this. I've had numerous that have said they are absolutely in favor. They'd rather plan ahead, and I have residents who have said that they are not in favor. So it's interesting to listen to various opinions. And I just thought that it would be interesting to kind of look back. When we go back to the October of 2018 Ways and Means meeting, there was a discussion held at that time about the reserves being depleted. There was discussion about a contingency plan if we had a downturn in the economy, and an idea of how do we formulate a plan to increase our revenue or to reduce our expenses. At that time, our current CFO had stated that our revenue was heavily dependent on sales tax. And if we do not have a diverse revenue stream, we're going to run into problems. This was all pre-COVID. We were already seeing issues pre-COVID. If we fast forward to our July of 2020, the Board of Aldermen was again looking at the budget and the idea of implementing potential property tax. When pulling the numbers from the retreat that they had then and comparing them to the retreat that we had this summer, it showed that there was definitely a concerning scenario that was coming towards us. And I wanted to bring up some of these numbers so that you can see that the numbers that from 2020, again, are pre-COVID, pre-impact of COVID in 2020. These are roughly May timeframe. So we are just now seeing the beginning of it. We did not start shutting down all of our businesses at that time. So when we look at 2020 licenses and permits, for 2020, we had $2,679,140 in licenses and permits. In 2022, we had $2,280,500. Our utility taxes in 2020 were at $2,045,000. In 2022, they were $1,900,000. Our sales tax revenue in 2020 was at $7,870,290. Our sales tax in 2022, again, this is July timeframe, was $7,468,431. That's pre-COVID to where we are now, coming out of COVID. In 2020, Ways and Means Commission made a recommendation for a 10-cent property tax. The Board of Aldermen chose at that time not to act. They knew we were already heading in the wrong direction, and they chose not to act. It's been very evident that our expenditures have continually been outpacing our revenue for the last 5 years. And for 5 of the last 6 years, the city has had to draw on our reserves to cover our operating expenses. This does not mean going below that 50% reserve level. But essentially you're saying, I'm going to take from my savings account to cover my operating expenses, just so that we have the appropriate numbers to be able to operate our business. Can you imagine if you went, so let's say over the past 5 years, you've had to dip into your savings account every time you need to go to the grocery store, or every time you needed to pay a utility bill, and then not make some sort of change? In the Parks and Stormwater Fund, it's a very healthy fund, but tonight we're looking towards our residents and we're saying, we want you to have some skin in the game. We want you to put some money up front because the city can't continue to pay these expenses at the rate we're doing. We're putting projects off 15, 20, 25, 30 years so that we can try to help residents out. This is our healthy fund. This isn't our road fund that's upside down. This is a healthy fund. We're saying, hey, guess what, resident? You need to wait 30 years before we can get to your project because we don't have the funds to be able to do it. And I'm all for helping residents with parks and stormwaters. I'm not saying that that's not something that I feel passionate about. We're taking a healthy fund and we're pushing that down the road. I've heard comments like trim the fat, cut back, and we've been doing that for years. Our staff is working overtime. We are short-staffed. We have had 2 auditors that have come in and said, you need to add to your staff so that you can they can handle the workload. We provide police and fire service at no additional tax. These are 2 very, very large expenses, but very necessary expenses. But yet we're the only city that does not have a property tax or a stable revenue source. Our facilities and our roads are in need of updating, but yet we're letting our assets to continue to depreciate year after year after year. Yes, we've received one-time funds from ARPA. We've sold a piece of property that has brought in money. These funds should be used for one-time projects. When you talk about where do we do with that $3 million, that potential $4 million, walk down Clayton Road. Alderman Wiesenhan and I did that a couple weeks ago. Look at the roads. Walk the roads. I know that our Public Works Department has put a lot of effort into trying to evaluate that and making sure that our roads are where they need to be and they've come up with plans. We need money there. That's where these one-time funds could go. Our parks, we need to improve our parks. There are some safety issues there. Let's look towards projects that we can do. We need to hire staff. We need additional police officers on the ground. We need to help the staff so that they're not working overtime. I appreciate that they are willing to do that. They shouldn't be expected to do that year after year after year. Alderman Wiesenhan stated that we have had several recommendations stating that we need adjustments in our budget and revenue. Ways and Means has now recommended it 2 times. We had the Public Infrastructure Task Force and the Fire and EMS Task Force say, we need to make some adjustments here. But yet the board continued to push these recommendations down the road. It's unreasonable to think that REI and Sephora are going to actually supplement the income that we need for the city to do what we need to do to move into a forward direction. We need to take a hard look at our budget and our revenue, and we need to make plans on how we're going to bring more stability to it. It seems fiscally irresponsible to know that we're headed in the wrong direction, to know that we've been headed in the wrong direction since for the past 5-6 years, but yet we're not going to implement a tax now. We need additional staff, we need additional officers, we need road work, we need to take care of the assets that we have that actually mean something to us, and we need to look towards the future of where Town and Country needs to be. And so for those reasons, I am voting in favor of a 10-cent tax. Thank you.
Alderman Holman.
Thank you. Excuse me, thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Mr. Sheldon, if you could just clarify. Our reserves operate at 50%. Any penny over that 50% is considered what? When you approach those funds?
It's in your fund balance.
Correct,
It's in
so
your
it's not
reserve fund.
dipping into, if you would like to equate it to a savings account, we're not dipping in, or let me ask you this, have we ever dipped below the 50% in?
Not to my knowledge, and I believe Mr. Jolly looked back and there's no action that
And
we
so
can trace.
when anything above 50% we use, we don't have to fill out an additional appropriation or do additional ordinance, it's available money in our general fund to use.
Only if it is not budgeted. If it's not
Yeah,
budgeted,
if it's
then
not
we come to
budgeted,
the
if
board
it's
for an
excess money
appropriation.
there, right,
Correct.
okay. And then, and I don't know if you'll know this information, but our road fund, which we have a restricted road fund, of the 88 municipalities, the municipalities that have a restricted road fund have a dedicated tax going into that, and you can only use that money out of that fund on roads. But Joanne in our retreat pulled together our capital and our road fund to show what it looks like, because if we didn't have that restricted road fund, we would be pulling money out of our capital to do our roadways.
So we have a restricted road fund revenue that is
Right.
a pass-through from St. Louis
Right.
County that all the municipalities
Right.
have. Right. But it does not meet what we need for the road.
Right, and so we spend that down each year and we pull from capital.
Correct. Most years.
Yes, yeah.
Correct.
And then with Clayton Road, is that on our projects for next year to be resurfaced? Is that 2023, and that's built into that?
Portion of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alderman Eno.
Mr. Zelman, how much of that portion is built in for Clayton Road?
We're going to do the section between 141 and Mason Road. So we're going to divide Clayton Road into 3 sections and surface seal it over the next 3 years.
And can I ask, of the projects that you've had to do road work this year, have any of them come in on budget?
No.
Thank you. So looking at our projects that we've had over the past year, we have on average gone 33% over budget. That money's got to come from somewhere. I don't see that our vendors are going to start bringing their prices down drastically. We have to start looking at things, prices are rising. We need to be able to have more revenue to be able to support these projects. We need to be able to do things that our residents want, like branch chipping and other things. I am absolutely in favor of doing those, but we have to have a stable revenue source.
Alderman Perot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple comments, because what's been said, so far, I appreciate very strongly. I will note that we are currently spending $500,000 more than we bring in. Those are real dollars. And we can't predict another medical emergency may occur, or what if we lose one of our major retailers, which could happen. There's rebalancing going on all the time with COVID. Many businesses found out that they can have their staff work from home, and they don't need rent space for their employees. These could seriously affect our revenue stream, even worse than it already is, at $500,000 per year loss. This year, I don't remember what next year's projection was. So I totally concur with what has been said from me in favor of this particular bill, that we need to reinforce the revenue of the city sooner than later, so that we're prepared in case something bad goes on. I was on Ways and Means when we made the first recommendation, and it didn't even get a second. So I really appreciate all the discussion that occurred, that this board could work together, no matter how the outcome goes. I appreciate us being able to work together. Thank you.
Appreciate that also. I'm very sensitive that my job isn't trying to coerce the Board of Aldermen, so I'm cautious in my statements, but in the big global picture of things, more than whether we have it or not, I have this, I don't know, I've ever seen 150,000 office visits, and so I think I have a feel for people, and I really want people to feel good about the city of Town and Country and the government of Town and Country. There is a part of me that has this concern that, okay, so almost at the end of September, beginning of October, you've now decided to pass a tax bill that's retroactive back to January of this year. If you were gonna do that, why didn't you do that back in January? You know, people already are, when I read some of the emails I've gotten on this, people are already suspicious of government. And I sometimes wonder, there are some keyboard warriors who maybe in real life aren't quite as vitriolic as their keyboard lets them be. That's one of them. But I do worry about passing a bill in October that's retroactive to January. That, in terms of what people are gonna think about what we're doing. That, and again, I want every single alderman to vote exactly the way they think in their heart we should do. I am not looking to squeeze anybody, but I do worry about the people's perception of what we're doing. And sometimes it does worry me that if the illusion is that if we went and asked for a property tax to be voted upon, the assumption is it wouldn't pass. So I guess we're taking it upon ourselves to do that for the people, even if the majority don't want to do it. Concerns me a little bit too. But that's, like I said, what I really like about this board is there's frank discussion. Everybody who's involved has a good heart, only wants to do what's right for the city. There's no hidden agendas. So, and I didn't ever expect when I became mayor that we'd all agree on every issue 100%. So if we end up on other sides of the fence on these things, that's fine too. But I absolutely appreciate the healthy discussion and the fine leadership from all 7 here, but Michelle's here, all they did the Aldermen we have. Any other discussion or amendment before we go to a roll call vote? Alderman Even.
So Mayor, I appreciate your thoughts behind that. But given that this is the time that we would have the opportunity to pass a property tax, I mean, it's not like we could have done it in January. Not unless we sent it to the vote of the people. So this is the time for us to look at our finances and to make decisions for the future. So this is the appropriate time.
And I get that, except I don't think I'm not sure the average citizen would get that. And I could be completely wrong on that, but I respect your point. Alderman Holman.
I hope this was my last statement. I'll say, you know what, if we would have passed a tax in 2020, we would have been wrong. So there are what if scenarios, there are good things that can happen, and there are bad things that can happen with our budget, with expenses, with revenues. The math is there with expenses exceeding revenue, I get it. And I think it is not a matter of if, but it's when. And we would have been wrong in 2020. Well, you would have had excess, you would have had this additional 3 million and the tax on top of it. So, and if you all recall, as our reserve started climbing years ago, and the Board of Aldermen tried to decide what to do with it, and we built a town square, there is major controversy about that project, and that project all started because of the excessive funds in the reserves. So that's it.
Alderman Louisiana.
I do have one question, kind of just thinking about that. If we would have had a property tax, would it have impacted the ARPA stimulus? Were there other, so that was dedicated strictly to recovery of sales tax? Or does it look at the revenue as a whole?
So basically, they just looked at population, and the federal government decided how much money they had and how they were going to distribute it. So the reason we got the 2.2 million was just based on our population size. It had nothing to do with any of our revenues. Now, there was a point in time when they said that we had to do this mathematical calculation because we might not be eligible for the 2.2 million. But then they changed their minds, and I think it was just because it was so many entities that they had to manage. So they chose not to do that, and then they changed the rule again, where we didn't even have to worry about specific reporting for our 2.2 million, as long as we were under 10 million.
10 million as a,
And since we weren't over the $10 million in receiving ARPA money, we don't have all this extra reporting that other entities have.
Just for complete transparency, that text I responded to was from my brother-in-law inviting me to a charity event, so it's nothing to do with tonight. Alderman Allen.
Thank you, just one more
Sure.
comment quickly. It seems like during 2020, then as we knew things were changing, we were in the midst I believe we've postponed many different projects to the following year. Did we pay more the following year than we would have paid initially?
I have not done that analysis.
If there's-
We could certainly look into that, but I do not have that information at my fingertips.
With that, what would your guesstimate be?
My guess is typically the following, that expenses do typically get higher. There were some people who were hungry for work and they did, were aggressive, but typically expenses do grow.
Thank you.
Alderman Hughes.
I've been pretty quiet up here.
Appreciate
I tend to listen. The only thing that comes to my mind is that whether or not a property tax is initiated this evening or not, I firmly believe that the city needs to do more citizen engagement in this process and citizen awareness. I don't like the term educate. I find it very condescending. But I think that there needs to be maybe something happening on a quarterly basis to get people involved, to find out what are they looking for. I may sit here and think, oh, I love leaf pickup. I'd like this, I'd like that. And the average person here may say, no, that isn't what we want. We want this, this, and this. Hadn't even thought about that. So what I'm asking the board to really think about doing is initiating some kind of a citizen engagement program, effort, whatever you want to call it, and enhance the citizen awareness of what's going on and why we're doing or not doing what we're going to do. So.
Great point, thank you. I would actually like to ask the city clerk now, because I'm getting confused, exactly what we're voting.
Right now before the board is Alderman Allen's amendment from 0 to 10 across all categories, in addition to her insertion of a new recital. So that needs to be voted upon. It can be a voice vote, or if you'd rather, I can call roll.
I think we're ready to, let's do a roll call.
Everybody good? Alderman Allen?
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan?
Aye.
Alderman Perot?
Aye.
Alderman Holman?
Nay.
Alderman Hughes?
Nay.
Alderman Mortland?
Nay.
And Alderman Even.
Aye.
It carries 4-3. The amendment carries 4-3, so now before the board is the bill as amended at 10 cents across the board.
Okay, I assume if we don't have any further discussion, we should vote on that. I would ask for a roll call vote.
Alderman Holman?
Nay.
Alderman Even?
Aye.
Alderman Allen?
Aye.
Alderman Mortland?
Nay.
Alderman Hughes?
Nay.
Alderman Perot?
Aye.
And Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
It fails 4-3. So all ordinances, for anyone listening or the public, every ordinance needs 5 to pass. It has failed because there were only 4 yeses. So right now it has failed before you.
Thank you. And
If I may address the board.
Sure.
So in order to ensure that we have the opportunity in future years to unsuspend the levy, it would be in the city's best interest to make sure that we do adopt an ordinance that sets it at 0, because a question could be raised if we just don't take any action and let the deadline pass. Someone could try and argue that we've waived the prior authorization. So out of the abundance of caution, my recommendation would be to have someone who voted with the prevailing side, which is those that voted nay, which is confusing because they got through fewer votes, but they did prevail, to make a motion to reconsider. And then if that motion passes, it can be back on the floor, and then have someone propose a new amendment to take it back to 0 and then vote on that. I understand that's kind of procedurally kind of a pretzel, but that would allow us to then still adopt an ordinance that suspends the levy at 0, and then without question would retain the city's authority to look at this in the next cycle about, so to preserve the ability. I think I heard a few people say it's not necessarily if it's when. We want to make sure the city still has the ability to address that when in the future.
I think there's a unanimous and safe feeling that, yeah, the when is gonna happen, and so I would not wanna put that in jeopardy.
I'd like to make a motion to reestablish the tax levy at 0 cents.
Second.
Well, so actually, the first motion is the motion to reconsider.
Oh, sorry.
I
Right.
will make the motion.
I'm so sorry.
Actually,
The motion to reconsider, should it be the will of the body, would need to come from Alderman Holman, Alderman Mortland, or Alderman Hughes.
Yeah.
As the nays.
so yeah.
So I would like to make a motion to reconsider the tax levy. And
So the motion before the body right now is a motion to reconsider bill number 2252 as was just voted upon. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
We can take a voice vote on that motion to put it back before the body.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey,
The ayes appear to have it.
I would agree with that.
Now the bill is back before the body as amended. So right now it is before the body at 10 cents across the board with the recital. So it would be appropriate at this time for someone to make a motion to amend it from 10 cents back down to 0. Jackie?
Yep.
I make a motion to amend the current bill from 10 cents to 0 for the tax levy rate.
And for the record, that motion, if Alderman Mortland and Alderman Holman agree, will also include the deletion of the recital that was added by Alderman Allen. Thank you. We need to remove the language that was also added, not just change the numbers. So that,
Sorry.
I believe that is your motion.
It's now a voice vote.
We're still on an amendment, so this is a voice vote, if you'd like, or we can call roll too.
Why don't we do it both? All in favor?
Actually, could I just get clarification? So this is just to,
It's a placeholder.
To put it back to the original 0.
right, so, okay.
Because if we don't, then we maybe lose the ability to add a property tax.
so this is a procedural vote.
Yes.
Correct.
That's a good.
It's to make sure that without question, we preserve the right to have a discussion again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, that brings it back to 0.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make sure I.
So right now you have before you the twice read original bill with the 0 rate, and so the roll call vote would be appropriate to.
So, are we then ready for a roll call vote? Are we done?
So now we need the roll call vote.
Can you repeat what the roll call votes were, please?
This is on bill number 2252 as it was originally proposed with the 0 rate. So that's what's before you. It's been still read twice, and so the roll call vote would be to adopt that one.
We're an hour ago.
On 0.
We're back where we
Yep.
started when we,
Good discussion.
Absolutely.
Good discussion.
Are you waiting?
I'm ready whenever you guys are.
Go.
Alderman Allen,
Nay.
Alderman Even,
Nay.
Alderman Holman,
Aye.
Alderman Hughes,
Aye.
Alderman Mortland,
Aye.
Alderman Perot,
Aye.
and Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
That carries and becomes ordinance number 4531.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you to the board for all the diligence and leadership. Next, bill number 22-53, the board as a whole. Without objection to the city clerk, read the bill for the second time.
I feel like I need a break or something. Bill number 2253 is an ordinance authorizing an agreement with Winning Technologies for the purchase, migration, and administration of Office 365 and all related licenses.
Motion to approve,
So moved.
in a second.
Second.
Any discussion or amendment? I'd ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Perot.
Aye.
Alderman Mortland.
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
Alderman Hughes.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
And Alderman Even.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4531.
Next bill number 22-54, sponsored by Alderman Holman. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the second time?
Bill number 2254 is an ordinance amending Chapter 415, Flood, Stormwater, and Erosion Control Regulations of the Municipal Code of the City of Town and Country, specifically by the amendment of Article 3 regarding the Stormwater Control Program.
Seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second. Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? I'd ask the city clerk for a roll call vote.
Alderman Holman.
Aye.
Alderman Weezahan.
Aye.
Alderman Hughes.
Aye.
Alderman Even.
Aye.
Alderman Perot.
Aye.
Alderman Allen.
Aye.
And Alderman Moreland.
Aye.
The bill passes unanimously and becomes ordinance number 4533.
Next is resolution number R07-2022, continued from 9/12/22. The resolution repealing the stormwater maintenance project policy, establishing a stormwater maintenance grant program, and adopting a formal policy for program administration. I seek a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? Alderman Mortland.
I just wanted to thank the Public Works Commissioners and staff for going through this policy and both ordinance before us, just from the standpoint of looking at what was working and what's not working, and how to shape the future to make it equitable on both sides.
Thank you. I agree. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. New business, bill number 22-55. Seek a sponsor for the bill, perhaps the board as a whole. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2255 is an ordinance accepting the bid of T Hill Construction for snow removal services on the roadways and streets of the City of Town and Country during the 2022-2023 winter season and authorizing a contract for same.
Bill number 22-55 is continued the meeting of Monday, October 10th, for the second reading and consideration. Next, bill number 22-56, also perhaps the board as a whole as a sponsor. Without objection, will the city clerk read the bill for the first time?
Bill number 2256 is an ordinance accepting the bid of WMV Enterprises for snow removal services on the roadways and streets of the City of Town and Country during the 2022-2023 winter season and authorizing a contract for same.
Bill number 22-56 is continued to the meeting on Monday, October 10th, 2022, for the second reading and consideration. Next, the warrant list is the amount of $1,819,721.45. I seek a motion and second to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or amendment? Alderman Hughes.
I was just wondering, thank you, sir. On page 4, I look at Town Square Water. Whoa. What's up with that?
So Mr. Zaltman did look into that. It went up, but it's at the same amount. I think the previous month we had some irrigation that was down,
Okay,
and that was all repaired, so it's about the same amount, if not
Okay.
less than same time last year.
okay. I'm just comparing it to the other amounts that are there.
Yeah.
And then I had a question for Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Are the, what do you call it, the stop sticks? Is that something that you put down and that you want to stop speeding and,
Yes, ma'am, that's what captured the criminals Tuesday morning.
okay,
Our plan was just to purchase one pair as a surplus, because we we used a pair for a neighboring community, helped them out.
okay,
Well, once everything happened Tuesday, now we're down 3,
okay.
so,
I was just wondering if that's
yep, exactly.
That's what I thought it was, but I wasn't sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chief.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Other business, I don't have anything else to bring up. Welcome to the order to the Alderman, Alderman Holman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to circle back to the budget just for one quick second and just express our commitment on something that Barbara and I have been discussing, the what-if scenario. If a property tax did not pass tonight, then what are the next steps? And what do we need to think about as a board and as a city, and how do we move as one together? So we started laying down an action plan calendar that actually starts in October and takes us through to the first month of the second quarter next year, what we need to do as mayor, city administrator, and board of aldermen, and Ways and Means Commission. So we are working through this. We'd like to loop in the chairman of Ways and Means and start this citizen engagement piece of this as well, and then present it to your commission and to city staff and to board of aldermen sooner than later, so we can be watching this every step of the way and being on top of where our expenses and revenues are trending, and react as needed. So I just wanted to, I know I shared a little bit of that earlier, I just wanted to share again our commitment to it, and we'll be moving forward on this, and we'll be working hopefully with the Ways and Means Chairman. Did I say Commissioner earlier? I meant Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Then I would seek a motion in a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great discussion. Thanks a lot for everything. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chief. That's what I thought those were, but I wasn't sure.